Hi, and welcome again to another edition of Market Analysis for today, May 30th of 2024. I'm Giovanni Betancourt, analyst, trader, and educator with Vantage Markets, and this is being recorded previous to the U.S. session open. So, the stock market is starting to struggle. All three major indices have slipped back from record highs, and 445 companies in the S&P 500 fell yesterday. For the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's slightly more serious. The index has fallen 3.9% since reaching its record of 40,000 close less than 2 weeks ago, without constituent sales force tumbling early today. The index slump is likely to get worse. May has been a strong month for stocks, but is ending in an anticlimax. Investors are anxiously looking for the next positive catalyst. With earnings season all but over, it looks like the artificial intelligence revolution isn't coming to save the day. There is a widening gap between hardware and software companies when it comes to enjoying the benefits of the AI boom right now. Salesforce and UiPath disappointing earnings Wednesday further highlighted that. Unfortunately, there are more negative catalysts around. Bond yields are proving to be a thorn in the side for stocks as rate cut expectations slip toward November. Jamie Dimon reiterated his warning that valuations are too high to justify share buybacks in a speech on Wednesday. There is one last hope for the market rally, though falling inflation. Much of the recent pressure on stocks has come amid fears that inflation will remain stubborn, concerns that have been shared by several Fed officials. But if inflation does start to trend lower again than the end of May, malice will ultimately just be a blip for the market. The quick question is when the data will reflect that. It may not come with Friday's core PCE reading. It may be weeks or even months. Until inflation begins to cool, the stock market struggles are likely to continue. U.S. rate futures have priced in a 0% chance of a 20 basis point rate cut at the June FOMC meeting and a 12.3% probability of a 25 basis point rate cut at July's policy meeting. On the earnings front for today, notable companies like Costco, Dell, Marvell, Best Buy, Dollar General, and Foot Locker Gap are slated to release their quarterly results today. Foot Locker just came out with their numbers and they actually have beat expectations. On the economic data front, all eyes are on the Commerce Department's second estimate of gross domestic product due later in the day. Economists on average forecast that U.S. GDP will stand at plus 1.6% quarter over quarter in the first quarter compared to plus 3.4% quarter over quarter in the fourth quarter. A lot of quarters. Also, investors will likely focus on U.S. pending home sales data, which came in at plus 3.4% month over month in March. Economists foresee the April figure to be negative 1.1% month over month, and that is also one of the big indicators to measure how the U.S. economy is. Also, U.S. initial jobless claims data will be reported today. Economists estimate this figure to arrive at 218,000 compared to last week's number of 215,000. So another deal here. So estimate figures are 218,000. Last week's what 215,000. So if we happen to receive a lower number than last week's, that should say that there are less people claiming, for initial jobless. But and that should be good for the economy, but bad for inflation, because the Fed wants to see higher unemployment data. If we do happen to see that the figure comes in even higher than 218,000, that is bad, but would it be good for stocks, because then the Fed will say, okay, well, unemployment is rising. That is something for us to ponder. Now, U.S. wholesale inventories preliminary data will come in today. Economists expect April's figure to be 0.0% month over month, compared to the previous figure of negative 0.4% month over month. Also, we have U.S. crude oil inventories data will be reported today as well. Economists estimate this figure to be negative 1.6 million compared to last week's value of positive 1.825 million. So the reason that we seen it today, not yesterday week, was because on Monday was a Memorial Day. On the European front, the Euro stock 50 are up about positive 0.16% this morning as investors look ahead to the release of eagerly awaited inflation data at the end of the week. Healthcare stocks outperformed on Thursday, while mining and technology stocks lost ground. Asian stock markets today settled in the red. China Shanghai Composite Index closed down negative 0.62%, and Japan's Nikkei stock index closed down negative 1.30%. So with that being said, let's take a look at what we can speculate to see in the markets for today. The end of the month, So that Dow bottom most likely will be met. Let's just be cautious anyhow. I am going to lower this puppy and I'm going to bring it up to right below it, 18,600-ish, around that. The 19,000 is going to continue to remain as my resistance. So I am expecting for another movement to the downside today. So selling the NASDAQ can be a good bet, or I could be wrong. Now, the S&P 500 has actually closed below that support that we had of 5270. So most likely we're going to continue to see more slippage or more of a trending to a downside. So 5248, which is basically where this levels be prior last week were. So let's just use that as well. Selling, of course. Dow Jones Industrial has just fallen from that 40,000 marker completely. So 38,000 is right there. Yeah, and I'm gonna use it, but yeah, we most likely will reach that 38,800 is the resistance of selling. Now let's see with crude oil. Crude oil has obviously a big thing to say in regards to inflation. The higher the cost of crude oil to make things, obviously the thing will be more expensive, so bringing up inflation. A pullback. We saw yesterday how it almost reached 81, but it quickly, by 50 cents, 6.40 cents. So it retreated quickly, and it closed in the red today. Also because the dollar index gained ground yesterday, so that's something to keep in mind. It is pulling back. It did open with a small gap up. It has been closed, and it continued to trend lower. So I'm gonna leave that $78 marker because it has been a nice floor for it. So would it come down towards it and then rebound again? That's something that we gonna stay tuned and watch. I initially selling the crude oil in the morning. That number that will come out may not be good. So 230 for Nat Gas, and I'm gonna bring that puppy down to right about 270. So selling Nat Gas also. Gold. So gold still within last week's range. All right. So I'm speculating for it to continue because it did bounce off the 50-day moving average. So let's see if that will be enough for it to keep it within range. Now, the sell-off, the pressure that we received that yesterday, obviously from the dollar index also. So let's keep that in mind. 2,300 is going to stay our support. Silver is looking to trend lower. I'm just gonna bring down the support a bit to right about here, and see if silver will rebound off the $31 marker and just continue to move higher. Copper is just continually to give back all those gains. Copper is gonna be something of a great investment with the AI boom. It's gonna be we're gonna electrify. You're gonna need a lot of power for that. So copper will should continue to move higher in the coming weeks. This is again profit taking end of the month. Also a lot of positions are being rolled over because of the futures contracts. So keep that in mind. Also, best selling just copper selling in the morning. Bitcoin, Bitcoin is sustaining itself around the 68,000 as a pivot point. So let's say it's gonna continue to move just sideways until it doesn't. The currencies yesterday took a dive because of the dollar index being so, getting so much strength. So we have a particular scenario where we did open with a small gap down, looking to recuperate itself. Let's see if that will help today. So I'm going to see that continue to be long. The pound also, so I'm going to bring down to 126,600. Looking to, I'm still looking for 128. And the dollar index, dollar index yesterday did that hyperbolic movement. So I'm just gonna use 105 200, and I'm still gonna leave 104 335 as my support. Today we could probably see a pullback, retracement on dollar index, and that could help the metals and other commodities. Have a nice trading day. I'll see you tomorrow.